In today's video, it's all about my HO layout and the progress that I've made over the last month. That's both on level 1, level 2 and level 3. Now there's a lot to get through, so let's make a start. Welcome back. This is the Escarpment. This is my model railway build channel and I'm your host Jason. So today's video, it'll be in April 2022, but in actual fact, it's a really late March 2022. You see, I didn't actually put one out last month. But anyway, so today you'll see a whole bunch of progress that I've been working on over the last 4 to 6 weeks. So there's a number of things I'm going to get through today. There's changes, or there's been further progress on level 1, level 2 and level 3. So I'll go through those things as well. Also, I'm going to take you over to the workbench and just show you some of the projects that I've sort of been doing in the background and where that's going to lead up into future videos. There's a range of stuff that I haven't completed, especially in the wiring side, because I'm still waiting on bits and pieces to sort of be delivered from China. I've got a bunch of my terminal blocks that I use underneath to connect my wiring. Without giving too much away, let's make a start and I'll show you what I've done to date. So let's start with level 1. I'm going to take you around and show you a few enhancements that I've done to it. Right here in front, you can see, for those with a keen eye, you can see there I've actually put in a couple more sidings here. Now this is going to service a fuel depot down here. You can sort of see I've got the cars in place and I've got a bit of a smaller siding here. There may be park a loco or two, or for some other minor industry that I might just have there. But everything's in place. I'm still waiting on some parts to come from China so I can just totally finish the wiring. It's really only the terminal blocks that I'm waiting on, but everything else there has been put in place. The points are in, frog juices are in. I've also installed another siding you can see here. Now that'll have 2 possible purposes. It can also be for storing locos waiting to go into the maintenance shed over here, or it could be just locos ready to service those cars that may be sitting in the North Port Kembla yard over there. We'll move down to the south end of level 1. Down here, I've made some very minor changes to these tracks. If I sort of get in a little bit closer, I don't know if you can see it there, but that was the original line that this track followed. So I've sort of brought it closer, and that's just due to the fact that the idea that I sort of spoke about, where I'm going to extend that North Port Kembla yard under the workbench, this is basically where it's going to hook back up down here on the south side. So I've sort of just brought that closer, so what I could do is just slightly change that back siding and extend it a lot more, so I can add a coil loading industry there. Over this side you'll have some sort of slab loading industry there. I've still got to come back and put that set of points in. I've got the point motor there ready to go. Now that sort of basically concludes what I've been working on with level 1. So for level 2, we'll start at the southern end. What I've done is put in a bunch of check rails here on the rails that go across the Stanwell Park Viaduct, and you can sort of see there, got both sides. Now I was kindly reminded in New South Wales that the approach had this type of tapering in, where once it was leaving, they were just left open. So I actually came back and made that change, and that also applies to that end down there. For those with a keen history of Stanwell Park, those in the know, I guess these check rails, they probably weren't put in until later in the 2000s. And so people are saying, well, hang on a minute, your period is somewhere between the 70s and the mid 80s. Yes, correct. Because I like them so much, I just put them in, and they're going to be here to stay. So yes, they weren't there during my period, but for this layout purposes. And look, to be honest with you, this is not a prototypical built layout or a prototype layout. It's proto Lancing, and probably more so on the Lancing side than the proto. But anyway, there will be some signature scenes, and I guess the Stanwell Park Viaduct is one of those. But everything else, look, it really has come from childhood memory, so I'm not really going back and researching and everything's going to be exactly that. Was never the intention of this layout, but it was to just remind me of the South Coast line. The big one, I've finished all the track work and the wiring of the Locomotive Depot here. The last time you would have seen this siding here was missing. I still had to put it in. Well, you can see I've got it installed. I've got the ash pit installed now. Originally I was designing some mecha one, but I've sort of tossed that and just went with a very basic ash pit to install here. I don't know if I'm going to use this. Yeah, what's that space? We'll see how we go. But anyway, everything's in, it's wired. I've actually now put in the programming track switch here, so they've got the main track and then the program track, and that's basically there at the back. What else we got here? Yes, I've got my brand new sanding tower, so that's her there. Now it actually came with a full plate, so I had to actually cut that out because obviously the track was already laid, but that wasn't too hard to do. I just had one of those mini saws and cut that out, and all's good to go. So that will be my sanding tower for this particular Loco Depot. Also, I've finished hooking up and wiring up the turntable here. Now, I did have it running. I don't have it running now because I've actually, once you lift that bridge, you've got to come back and reprogram, and I haven't actually come back to reprogram that as yet. So I did have a bit of a short video in my Facebook page for those interested. I think there's a link, so feel free if you want to join there. I do have a lot of background, or things that are happening in the background that I post up on that, and then normally do these YouTube videos once a month. For those that have the motorized one, there is a section here where you lose track power. So as that bridge goes around and crosses this section, it loses power. So most of my locos, well, all of my locos will be sound locos. So it's a little bit funny when the train comes on, I start to turn it, the sound goes out and never comes back on until you manually put the sound back on again. Now that's just a design of this Walthers 90-foot turntable. I was pretty disappointed, to be honest with you. I thought they could have designed it a lot better. So what I've got in mind, and I actually ordered one of these things where it sort of the wires can turn so that you've got a connection there, and I was thinking of installing one of these in the guts, so that way I could have continuous power to the track, and then I guess support the reversing of that track as it turns by reverse circuitry of some sort. So obviously this one's too big, so I've ordered myself another one. I'm hoping it's a lot smaller, so I'll be looking at installing that in this to fix up this gap here, so when I have my sound logos come on, they're not going to lose sound halfway around on that turntable. But other than that, everything else is in place. I've got my power switch down here. Actually, it's probably not turned on at the wall. So I've actually programmed this. I've had that working. As I said, I've lifted it, so it's no longer programmed, and I need to come back and do that. And if you're interested, please leave a comment, and I may make a short video just on how to program that if you're interested. But anyway, let me know in the comments. Other than that, that's basically everything that I've done on level 2. So for level 3, first up, we're going to start up here on the coal line. Now, for those that have been following this channel, you would have known that I sort of had this line in a line there, but it was actually pulled up, and it was sort of used many years ago, or gave that feeling of. I've decided to put this short coal line back in because obviously with my new coal loader it can service two, and while I was going to make one of the tracks obsolete, I've decided, you know what, I prefer to have two, just to make some operations a little bit more interesting up here. So basically I've put the track in. I've got a set of points that I put in here. Now, it was very interesting coming back and doing some retrospective point motor installs. So you're probably wondering, how the hell did I get that under there? So obviously these are the Cobalt point motors. They're a lot smaller than the tortoise ones. And so I was able to fit that in there, stick that in there. Now, what I did was measured roughly, I guess, from the side here to where I'm thinking the screws are put in. So I don't actually put in all 4 screws here. I normally find 2 at opposite ends, one on this side and one on the other side is more than enough. So I've sort of drilled a couple holes here where I could bring a long Phillips head screwdriver up and get those screws in, and then I've got another one on the other side where the wires will feed back through. I'm going to come back and probably just cut out a square and put some of my sound deadening material over there just to cover that hole. I mean, it's not necessary, but that's just, I guess, my OCD at times. But anyway, so that's in place. You can see there I've got some wires here I've still got to connect, so it's not connected as yet, but the track's in place, the wires are there ready to be connected, and obviously I'm waiting on some material to be delivered from China, again around those terminal blocks. Got the point motor ready to be installed down here on this side. The points are in. I actually, when I put these points in, there was some short track over here that I didn't want to rip up and rewire. So what I'd done was extended these frogs all underneath there. They're all soldered, and basically, and then I put the insulator further down where I had the gap, or the track gap already, and same as this one here. Now I do need to come back and test because it's so far from here. I mean, I may have a train that's on the short line but stops here, and then I may have another one that comes through to allow to go past. Now I just need to make sure I do some testing where I've got a loco on that, and I know when I reverse stuff, usually once the loco's in that loop, it's not a problem when you're switching track power from neutral to the positive, etc. But I just want to do some testing just to make sure with my frog juicer. Now the other big thing, level 3, is I've done a bunch of planning up here for my coach yard. So last month it was all about the Loco Depot, and I think the future months will be about this coach yard. You can see there I've done a lot of designing already on Anyrail 6. I've got it printed out and placed and working out where I want things, and just making sure that the design that I did on the computer is actually going to work up here. Now there is a little tweak so far I am going to make, and that's basically up this end. So I'm actually going to take that out and just make this track the branch line that comes in. This one will just be another siding and will end up there somewhere, just like that one. Obviously there's going to be some storage sheds for the coaches there. And then what I'm going to do with that Y point that I'm not using at the entrance up there, I'm thinking of bringing it down to this spot here, and this is where it is right now, just to bring in potentially some small freight to service the terminus passenger station here. You can see behind there will be a terminus station, and that's why I've got the 6 cars lined up there. I just wanted to check out what sort of length I'm looking at for 6 cars, because really I think 6 cars will be my longest passenger. I mean, it might have a baggage car on it, I don't know. It's quite possible, but really I've sort of set or made sure that this one up here at least services 6 cars. The one on level 2, the main station, services 6 cars, but the one down at Port Kembla North will only service 4 cars. Obviously there's some sidings here to store further coaches, or it may be just storing some other freight. I'm still thinking about what sort of industry I need up here. I would like to get at least one in, just to give me some operational interest up here. When you look at level 2 and level 3 branch lines, they're all about the locomotive storage, where I can store a bunch of locomotives, and up here a bunch of coaches. But at the end of the day, I still want to make them operationally interesting. So I think I've sort of combined the two worlds, where a lot of the layouts that people build, you know, they have their storage tracks tucked away. They don't scenic them, they're just sort of out of the way. But for me, I decided to have it part of the scenic layout. So that's the progress to date. Obviously there's more storage sheds that'll be at the back there, and you know, the line coming in, obviously there's a bunch of points here. It can take it to either the sidings here or straight into the station. This is probably going to be somewhere I may store either my 720, 620 depth cars. I do have two. I have one from Eureka, and I've got another one on order, which is a 4-car one from Ozcision. Anyway, so that's the work to date, and I'm quite happy with that. I don't think there'll be any more tweaks to that. Like I said, I just need to work out some car lengths and just to make sure that idea will work. So now I think we'll just head over to the workbench, and I'll show you some projects I've been working on. So this is my workbench. There's a few projects over here on the go. Not sure where to start, but I guess one of them, which has annoyed me, but I have to do it, is I've had to come back to this 44 class here. Had big issues, well, a couple of issues actually. I had a motor issue which drove me nuts. Fortunate enough to find someone online that was happy enough to sell me one. And then the board seems to have a break in it somewhere, or sort of, if you could bend it a certain way it would work, and then when it just sat in its normal position within the loco, it just wouldn't work. So anyway, look, I've come back, I've installed a decoder buddy, I've got the front wiring hooked up. I've still got to do the back and then the internals to the back within the cab here. But that's something that's on the workbench that I'm working on currently, or have been over the last few weeks. Actually, I've sort of had given it a bit of a break, but I do need to come back to it. Now, one of the other big things was I've started to do some prototype work with my 3D resin printer. That's what I've printed on my printer, and it's sort of, I did it in 3 bits here. Look, that was just the first prototype. I've got to come back. I actually got to print this stuff out. Some of it was a bit wonky and looking. I really just rushed the support structure of it, so I need to come back and just do that properly so I can get a really nice clean print on that bottom half. This middle section here, I've actually gone back to my design CAD program and put more detail into it, so that will look really nice once done. And if you can sort of get, I don't know how it'll show up, but I do have these lines, very fine lines running down to give me the notion of corrugated iron. But I need to put in some deeper channels to represent that corrugated iron, and I've got some other detail. I've also got a side piece. I don't really know what it is. I'm assuming it's the motor part that maybe turns these coal loaders on and off, but it sits to the side. And like I said, there's more detail I need to get into that, but that'll be ready to be printing. And then obviously the top part here, basically need to come back and just do a whole bunch of further detail. I've actually started on the CAD design. I've got the door in, I've got, you know, some steel bars here, there's obviously some windows. I'm going to take or remove that top and do the roof in a separate component, so it's going to change a little bit, and I'm going to make it a little bit shorter. I think it's just a little bit too tall here when you sort of look at the big picture. I know they sort of came in different sizes, but I think the one Kiramira or whatever it's called is just a little bit shorter, so I might be just talking about a couple centimeters here. But anyway, that will be done. So the next print will be I guess the version 1 from the prototype, and it'll be a lot more detail, and it could be the final print, who knows, because I am getting to the point where a lot of the detail is there ready to go. There is some other bits and pieces that I will design and print separately. Obviously it had some platforms down here where people would walk on underneath, and had stairs, etc. So that's just some stuff I'll do at a later stage. You can see here I've got a bunch of stuff ready to go for the coach yard for level 3. Got enough point motors that will see me out. I've got all my frog juices to make sure my frogs are aligned. Obviously I've got a whole bunch of straight track down there. I've still got a couple of points up there that I need to wire up ready for DCC. All the other stuff is wired and ready to go. Now, one of the other big ticket items that I've been talking about for some time are my control panels. And I've sort of come in and out of different designs and what I wanted to do. Now, I've ended up going down the lines of using, I guess, DCC Concepts package here. Obviously the LED lights, they're both bi-directional. They come with the switches, and I'm thinking I'm going to use that system. And then obviously with that, there's one of these power units where it comes with 2 power supplies. It sort of turns the two 12 volts into like a plus and minus 12 volts here, and that's where you can see the 3 wires. This was some stuff that I got from China. I'm still waiting on some more. There's a 3-wire wiring here to suit this, because obviously it'll be centralized on the layout, and then it'll go off to a number of panels actually. And I'll show you what I've done with or where I'm going to be putting the panels to, because I've got them marked out around the layout. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be hooking these lines in, the 12 volts in. I'm going to put it through a buck converter or 2 for each of the power supplies, and bring that down to, I don't know, maybe 7-8 volts, just to see. And I need to check out how bright the LEDs will be, but I just want to make sure then, you know, the set of points are sort of moves in a more slower state. I don't want to make them fast by pumping more juice into them. So anyway, I got to experiment a bit with that, and I've sort of brought myself a bit of a box where I'll be installing those, and that'll be put up on the wall underneath the layout next to the power supply, or the 240 volt plugs, and we'll go from there. And then obviously we've got wires here that'll go off to each of where the boards will be, control boards will be installed. So just quickly, so from a level 2, level 3 point of view, may have seen it and I forgot to mention it. So these will be where the panels will be. Now lengthwise, originally I was mucking around or designing an A5 size, but that's not going to be the case. I'm going to be designing it on A4, but possibly 2 A4s side by side. So I'll do that on the printer. It'll stick to a full board. I'm going to ordering some custom see-through perspex for it, and then obviously with some sort of border, and it'll probably stick out a little bit, but I think there's plenty of room here and it won't get in the way. So one will be here for this level to control all of it, and then obviously with the coach yard, it'll be an identical unit above it doing all of level 3. Now, as far as level 3 on this side with the coal loading facility, I guess I've got 2 things here. Down below, I've got a siding there with a point right there, and another set of points down the end there, and then obviously what I showed you with the coal up here. So that control panel will be down here. You can see I've got it marked right here, and that's where that control panel will be. And I'll probably only make that an A4 size. I think that won't be a double A4 size, because there's no point. It's pretty basic configuration up here. So for the other side, I've decided to have the majority, or actually I think all the control panels will be in this section right here. There's lots of space. You can see here I've got some extra stools that I showed one the other day, but I ended up buying a couple more. I thought they were great for people operating down here. So basically this line right here, there'll be double control panels down there to control all of this along here up until that point. This one here will control level 2 there, but also the branch line off to level 2, and then obviously the crossovers here. And again for level 3, which up here we'll do the coal siding, the coal return loop, and then obviously the main lines as well as the level 3 branch line up there. And then down here, and now it's going to be interesting, but I think I'm going to have a fairly large control panel across here, where this is going to basically do everything from the maintenance of the diesel maintenance shed here, everything along the yard over there on the North Port Kembla. It won't do the station area. These will be taken care of with 2 control panels here. So there'll be one for the coal loop to control all that, and then there will be another one which will control the station and how it works and fits in with everything else. And so that's the plan at the moment. So we'll see how that progresses. But as soon as the parts start coming in, I need to do a prototype, get that ready for level 2 over there for the Loco Depot, and then go from there. And once I've got that in place, that will be the design moving forward for the rest of them. But there will be a separate video on that one to see how I go with that and whether or not I pull off what I'm hoping that I've got in my head. Other than that, I think that sort of does it. So we'll head back to the chair.
So there you have it. That's been the progress to date. It was sort of a weird month. I didn't really think of, well, in actual fact, I thought I took the foot off the accelerator there for a few weeks, but no, there's been a lot done, so I'm pretty happy with the progress. Moving forward, I've got a bit of a checklist here. So just some of the major things coming up. Obviously, I've got to come back, finish that fuel siding. I've got some parts that are still coming from China on that one. I'm going to actually move a set of points that I've got there currently over on the North Port Kembla yard over here. I'm going to move them back one set of rails, just due to the fact that, you know, I've got a grand plan to actually extend that yard under the workbench and then hook back up over on level 1 on the south side. So I've got to come back and finish that extended short coal line that I've started up there on level 3. I've still got the point motor to install, and I just need to do some testing on that extended frog just to make sure it's not going to give me any grief. Other than that, got to come back. I still got a little bit of painting to do because some of the earlier fascia, I didn't paint both sides, and because they're made from MDF, I just want to make sure they're sealed so they don't swell as we move into the future. Other than that, that sort of brings us to the end of this video. So for now, stay safe and bye for now.